But health and wellness never became a very large TAM in India. I think quick commerce is going to be that, let's call it the demonetization movement for health and wellness. That's going to drive significant behavior change.
So, of course, all the quick commerce companies are predominantly tier 1.
बोलते हैं ना कि हाथी को नचाना मुश्किल होता है. It's that situation. Flipkart and Amazon are elephants now. For them to move at pace, be nimble and reimagine the entire supply chain to do this, I'm sure they'll get it done. But the pace at which they'll get it done will be too slow for them to maybe claw back some of this market share that they're losing. It's going to be very hard for you to raise capital from someone whose LPs are, let's say, in the US.
I see that, while we have seen quite a domination in the OTA sector, but I think my sense is that that's going to further continue to have a higher growth sector. But what's your overall sense? How is the IPO market looking? What is your prediction?
Hey everyone, welcome to Asymmetric episode 9. It's our first episode of 2025. I know we had taken a break in the last week of 2024. Well-deserved break if you ask me. Most of us were away and therefore we couldn't shoot. We had a quick recap episode that we put out. But clearly from the viewership, none of you were also there during the new year. So I'm hoping that all of you are refreshed and are excited to get back on track with every week with a new episode. We don't have Shantanu today. Unfortunately, the Delhi pollution has finally caught up with him and he's been unwell for the last couple of days. We delayed the shoot. We tried to make sure that he can make it, but unfortunately, it seems to be a little serious. Please wish him well and we hope to see him back for the next episode. Obviously, with me is Chirag, our second partner in crime. So at least we would want to continue and make sure that we are there for you every week. We have a lot of things lined up, mostly predictions for 2025. Chirag, as usual, our chart man, has a bunch of charts and we would love to cover some learnings, some key changes that happen in the Indian startup ecosystem, in the Indian venture ecosystem in 2024, and how we see 2025 playing out. With that note, over to you, Chirag.
Great, Revant. Wish everyone Happy New Year. I hope it has started on a very, very good note. And a lot of things to discuss. But how are you feeling, my friend? How has the new year started? How has been the break? How are you kicked up?
I think kick up to hote hi hai. See, as a health and wellness business, so we always look forward to January because this is the time when finally my team cannot tell me that customer intent is low. Jan is the time when everybody is very, very keen to make resolutions, and I think the resolution that's most common is around health, mental and physical both. Sleep seems to be making a big run for the money. I think a lot of people around me are talking about more sleep. I think Brian Johnson on everybody's X feed or his India visit definitely helped. So we are hoping at least to have a good quarter. So pretty kicked up for that. I think the break was good. Very, very excited to see what 2025 brings us.
Are you seeing any good trends in terms of people taking more healthier resolutions or more longer resolutions? I am sure that everyone's taking resolutions, but then one not living up to it. And specifically, are you seeing any jump in magnesium supplements as well?
Absolutely. So, interestingly, I have a prediction for 2025 that this time people will be able to keep their resolutions for a little bit longer than the 20, 30, 45 days that they usually do. And I think the difference again is going to be quick commerce. पहले ना थोड़ा बहाना होता था कि अरे यार खत्म हो गया सप्लीमेंट भूल गए. When we call some of our customers that hey, you didn't order the second time, they think अरे खत्म हो गया भूल गया 3 दिन लग रहे थे डिलीवरी के लिए etc. Now that quick commerce is making sure that everything is available in 10 minutes and most of our supplements are available on quick commerce, all the 3 platforms including magnesium, the magnesium gummies. I think it's going to be hard for people to give that excuse, right? कि अरे खत्म हो गया भूल गया etc. And behavior has definitely changed where people who need anything in 10 minutes, they keep ordering. Like I know people who order twice or thrice a day from Instamart or Blinkit now. So I predict
Maybe we
that
will
this
get
time,
maybe we will get new set of excuses. I know that there are people who are known for giving 1 million excuses, and there are people who are known for generating or working towards $1 million of wealth, or whether it is health, both. Right. So my sense is you will possibly find newer excuses. Uh, I'm hoping that your prediction in terms of 30-45 days become 90 days.
yeah. No, I can actually see. So when I talk to the leadership at Blinkit and Instamart, they are most kicked about health and wellness because one of the biggest reasons health and wellness didn't become a large market in India was that subscriptions doesn't work. Unlike the US where everything is subscriptions, Amazon Subscribe and Save also didn't pick up. But quick commerce is like subscription, right? It's subscription with the power in the hands of the user, क्योंकि 10 मिनट में आ जाता है. So the highest compounding behavior that these platforms have seen is in the health and wellness category. So my prediction is all of these health and wellness categories, you're already seeing that with protein, right? And I think the next few adjacent categories, whether it's magnesium for reduction of anxiety or sleep, whether it's creatine for gym goers, we are seeing a massive growth now in collagen, etc. So a lot of these, I shouldn't call it second tier, but they were always small markets compared to protein. Protein itself was not growing as much. But in the last 18 months, I think with the advent of quick commerce, I think behaviors are changing significantly. And I think we'll see the big inflection of health and wellness in the next 12 to 18 months, driven by this tier one, obviously, because they have the affordability to spend 2,500, 3,000 a month, which is what most people spend on protein plus other supplements. And the more penetration that quick commerce has beyond the tier one cities as well, this market is going to keep continue to expand. I think that's going to be that subsector of health and wellness within health and personal care. I think we have seen beauty grow a lot. We have seen personal care grow a lot. We have seen apparel grow a lot, electronics. But health and
Yeah.
wellness never became a very large TAM in India. I think quick commerce is going to be that, let's call it the demonetization movement for health and wellness. That's going to drive significant behavior change in the tier one, top tier customers, and then subsequently in tier two and tier three as well.
Interesting. I think you have already set it up with the first prediction that what do you, I think then it takes us directly to what do you think about e-commerce or overall commerce? What's your prediction? What's the one big thing which you are looking out? What's in the commerce space? Of course, quick commerce is one, but I think we'll need a little bit deeper. I think you would have seen, Revant, the right-hand side chart. I think it's a very interesting one. You look at this is monthly active user month on month for large e-commerce companies. Look at the way it's gone. Amazon used to be, if you look at the left, Amazon used to be the top in terms of market share, and it has dipped to now being the number third, right? And
Yeah.
if you, then the obvious question is who has gained, right? The number one gainer in this is Misho, which has
Yeah.
gained from being the second largest or like almost 5% market share to now almost 35-40% market share. But I think interestingly, while this chart does not show us a lot of this movement towards quick commerce, which is starting to happen, but our sense is that a lot of this is started to move towards quick commerce as well, right?
Yeah.
We see. By the way, Flipkart has this play on Shopsy, which is a Misho type play that also has gained. Some people might
Yeah.
argue that we should see Flipkart plus Shopsy together. So I think that bet also for Flipkart at least seems to be there. I don't want to comment that it's working, not working. And I think on the while that's there, I think the interesting one is that Amazon has dipped over the years, and more significantly in this last 12-18 month period, 12-month period, wherein it has dipped after stabilizing, right? That's there. And if you look at on the left, this is the e-commerce revenue split for four listed companies. Three of them are large CPG companies, and one of them is one of our favorite startup which got listed. You look at their breakup in terms of how do they do e-commerce. So for HUL,
Hmm.
it's almost like two-thirds of the revenue on e-commerce comes from traditional e-commerce, which is Amazon, Flipkart, etc. And then almost one-third of revenue now comes from quick commerce. Nestle
Yeah.
is even stark. Nestle is,
Yeah.
because they are in
60%.
the F&B category. So F&B
Yeah.
category, of course, takes more share on quick commerce. So 60% has become quick commerce. Whereas, if you go to beauty, so Honasa is mostly beauty. It's still 85% on traditional e-commerce and 15% quick commerce. My sense is that they'll want to get that number higher over the next few quarters.
Hmm.
So,
I
if
think.
you look at this, and I'll show you probably a few more things, I think, before you come in. I think before we come in, I think this is also quite interesting that you look at tier one and tier two and beyond for different companies. I think this should give us a good view that where this is headed. So, of course, all
Yeah.
the quick commerce companies are predominantly tier one, as you can see from the chart. Amazon
Yeah.
is like amongst the large ones, uh, inching ahead on tier one, or they were predominantly tier one as compared to Flipkart. Flipkart is predominantly tier two, tier three as compared to Amazon. So that's there. And then on the right hand side is an interesting one. Flipkart and Amazon, more Flipkart than Amazon, have been or have built their business around electronics as a category, right?
Yeah.
It's a large part of their GMV. Probably, 25-30% of GMV is this electronics as a segment, which today, while we have started to see Blinkit, Zepto start to do it, but they have not gone aggressively into this category yet. So I think
Yeah.
these are interesting. At least the way I look at this is okay. Amazon it was higher in tier one, Flipkart is higher in tier two, tier three, and Flipkart holds on to its dominance on electronics. They continue to do that, which is a different category for quick commerce guys to play. So in that light, what is expected to happen? My sense is, Amazon continues to lose from here. It's a hard battle. I know that they are launching Amazon Pace. The war in quick commerce is going to get intensified, I think, with 6, 7 players coming in. It's going to be, my sense is going to be an interesting battle. On one way, it's going to be consumer delight in terms of discounts again, possibly. But all of these are mostly listed companies, about to be listed companies. So I don't know how much they'll be able to do. Would love your thoughts, my friend.
नहीं यार अभी एज यूजुअल तूने एकदम बढ़िया चार्ट्स निकाल लिए इफ यू गो टू द प्रीवियस स्लाइड just show the chart where the Mao shares are there. I think it's interesting to see that for the longest time India was the Dow Mao capital, right? And it sort of continues to be uh, for tier 2 and beyond. So what we see here in terms of Mao share is just the number of transacting users, but the variable missing here is the AOV. So if you take the Flipkart and Amazon AOV, which would be close to what 1800, 2000, or maybe at least 12,
2500
1300
bucks.
plus, 2500 bucks, right? And Misho AOV would be what? Sub 500?
Misha's 350 bucks.
Yeah. So I think the stark difference is how different companies are going after different user segments and modeling their business around that. So I actually foresee that 2025 you'll see Misho go way beyond this and increase it even more because by definition the audience that they are serving love their offering, and at 350 rupees it's going to be difficult for Amazon, Flipkart, or even quick commerce to actually make money with that audience, right? So Misho is a very unique model and they'll continue to win this Mao battle for sure. It's also I agree with your perspective that Nestle being predominantly an F&B company, and therefore their share of quick commerce is so high. And but it's interesting to see how soon this has happened. Like in 18 months, if 60% of Nestle business has gone from, I mean, before quick commerce, I'm sure traditional e-commerce was 100%. So I think this is the segment that is most worrying for both Amazon and Flipkart, if you come to the next chart, which is it has started with F&B. And if so much of F&B is going to move to quick commerce, and then subsequently personal care is moving to quick commerce, and it's only a matter of time before beauty moves to quick commerce. They're going to start losing their frequency of transactors. If you're left with people only coming for electronics and mobile phones once in 3-4 months, then the network effects of the platform just go away, right? So they have to, I mean, that's what they're doing with Amazon Pays and Flipkart Minutes. They are reacting. But I think they're already a little too late, because the transition shift, the consumer behavior shift is so sudden that by the time they ramp this up, see, they're just launching now. People are saying we'll launch in Bangalore, we'll launch in one city, then we'll ramp it up. But the competition between Blinkit, Zepto, and Instamart is so intense that all of them are on a tear. And I think the consumer behavior shift is going to be permanent. So I see and across the board, there is a view that Amazon Pays and Flipkart Minutes will give tough competition. And like the Zomato share price sort of reduced a little, and people said, yeah, Amazon is stop coming in, so Zomato. I don't see that as a problem. I just think, बोलते हैं ना कि हाथी को नचाना मुश्किल होता है. It's that situation. Flipkart and Amazon are elephants now. For them to move at pace, be nimble, and reimagine the entire supply chain to do this, I'm sure they'll get it done. But the pace at which they'll get it done will be too slow for them to maybe claw back some of this market share that they're losing. At some point of time, they'll settle it. But I see more pain for Amazon specifically this year for sure.
So I think one more thing which I wanted to bring up is that while I think two things. One of that is that quick commerce, of course, all of us are gung-ho, looks like the sector to be in. But then also, we know that all these brands are now ended up paying like 60-65% in terms of commissions to them. And then there is inventory allocation costs, etc., etc. What's my sense is that do you think that it's going to become sooner that they launch their own private labels? What we saw on Amazon and Flipkart, it took them a decade to come to private labels, etc. My sense is that that's going to happen much sooner in quick commerce, because the margin profiles are such that you can't have multiple brands anyways. So, just to build more margins, my at least one of my predictions is that maybe not in 2025, or maybe we will start to see emergence of private label brands from these quick commerce players. But it will be much sooner than what happened in the e-commerce journey. But that's one. And two is we keep hearing, or we keep debating this, that, is India slowing down? Is there a little bit of slowdown in the economy? If that is true, or if there is some amount of muted growth, then where is this share coming from? One is Amazon, but is this coming from offline world as well? What we are debating here in terms of the e-commerce growth.
Got it. I think one take I'll have is I have a reverse prediction. I don't think quick commerce guys will launch private label. And my view is different, because if you look at e-commerce, the traditional e-commerce, they took too long to break even. Like, I don't think Flipkart is profitable even today. It's been 14, 15 years, 16 years. So they had to rely on private label for margins. But if you look at the quick commerce guys, they are making enough margins. Blinkit is already profitable. As a listed company, Swiggy has said that Instamart will break even in the next 18 months. And I'm sure if they're given that guidance, 18 ke badle maybe 24 months ho jayega. But wo karna hi padega. But F&B is very different, right? Beauty, personal care, F&B, which is a large part of the offering today in quick commerce, is all high margin business where the take rates are significantly higher. And as long as the quick commerce guys keep solving for AOV, and we had done that analysis, I think 2 or 3 episodes back, where we saw that Blinkit profitability reason is the fact that their AOV is close to 600 and they have a good take rate. And if once Instamart also reaches that number, they'll be pretty okay. And the network effects will start kicking in. See, ad revenues have just started today. That will keep increasing over time. I think they will not need private labels because doing private labels in fruits, vegetables, uh, food and beverage is much, much harder than doing a private label in electronics. Ya pankhe, right? Or let's say taulier, which is what
But
all the
but isn't
larger,
that
broader e-commerce.
much easier in beauty, or it's at least in between, right? If it's much harder in, let's say, electronics,
Fair point. So
uh,
you're saying personal care, shampoo, tel to कर सकते हैं करके वो लोग. But if there is a, like, if you go back to the chart where you saw Honasa only at 15% on QuickCom, there is a I think the reason for this is Honasa is a bunch of 7 brands, right? So there is Mamaearth, which is maybe close to the pricing of Unilever brands or Dabur brands, but the rest of their brands are still premium. And while the premiumization is happening, this audience that is today driving the quick commerce behavior is very brand conscious. I am not sure it is the value conscious crowd. Maybe at some point of time there'll be a value conscious crowd also, but today people who are buying on quick commerce are very, very, very brand conscious. They know what they want.
I beg to disagree here. At least my data indicates that there is very less loyalty at the moment in beauty. Everyone seems to be trying in that mode today. Maybe I think we are in that phase where loyalty will start to come in, but it's still, at least we see that beauty shoppers tend to shop or try many new brands these days, right? Maybe it's for different causes, but
Yeah.
at least what you're saying in terms of loyalty across the sector, there is very healthy repeat. But if I go brand by brand, I'm seeing
Yeah.
that some brands, of course, do really well, but
Yeah.
still, consumer is in that mode where they're still figuring out, okay, what works for me.
Yeah.
So I think we're in that
100%.
phase. Yeah.
100% agree, Chirag, but two data, na, you are seeing it across the D2C network. See, you have a $1 billion plus GMV across 1,000 plus brands, and therefore you're looking at that data. But मेरे हिसाब से when people are buying on quick commerce, they have done their experimentation. They have aligned कि अच्छा मुझे यही चाहिए, मुझे हर महीने यही चाहिए, इसलिए मैं जाके quick commerce से खरीद रहा हूँ मैं. And then the repeat engine starts from there. So you are not getting there's no discovery on quick commerce. You're not getting any new to brand customers on quick commerce. Essentially, they are your customers,
Yeah.
which is why brands are feeling the pain, right? Ki I am now having to pay a 35%, 40%, 50% rent to serve my own customer in 10 minutes, which is why hopefully soon there'll be some companies that will enable 1 hour, 2 hour delivery for D2C brands as well, so that they don't lose their customers to quick commerce. But that's a separate topic altogether. But my view is today, 95% of quick commerce GMV is existing brand customers who are just saying, I need that 10-minute convenience. They are not looking to experiment beyond as such.
Interesting. I think you touched upon these two companies which went IPO in the last 12-18 months, both Zomato and Swiggy. I think which is a good segue to what's your prediction? I think India did 13 13 IPOs in 2024. What are you feeling about that? I think market looks buoyant. At least a lot of companies are lined up. What is your sense of that? Maybe I can pull up a few things there as well. These were the companies which went IPO in 2024, the right bottom side chart. And
Yeah.
we have been referring to this chart, which is the Rain Gauge Index by the Rainmaker Group. I think as an index, this has been performing much better than you look at Nasdaq, you look at Nifty. So and I think you look at the left hand side, which is 14 or 22 companies to be listed in 2025 are loss making, right? So we have here Flipkart, Ola. I don't know whether Flipkart will be able to make it this year. But what's your sense overall, on the IPO market? We have seen successes. I think overall the index seems to be doing well. We have seen, at least we saw it in case of MobiKwik, we saw it in case of BlackBuck, that there was conservatism in terms of pricing it, and then we saw immediate gap up opening. But what's your overall sense? How is the IPO market looking? What is your prediction?
I think the prediction of maybe getting 20 to 25 IPOs this year from the VC-backed portfolios will come true, we could end up getting surprised on the maybe even crossing 25, right? Broad reasons are India's always been an liquidity / exit starved market, right? If you look at most VC funds which have deployed till 2015, so the 2006 to 2015, people would have raised 3 funds, and we still, a lot of funds are still giving their exits or giving the LPs returns from their first or second funds as well. Like Pine Labs is a 2006 investment for peak. So there is a lot of liquidity pressure, that is one variable in this. The second is obviously the supply of capital is immense. If you look at the Indian domestic markets, while the markets have corrected a little bit in the last 3-4 months, there is a lot of money on the sidelines. Third, there seems to be a very buoyant optimism around taking risks around loss-making companies, but at least giving the guidance of that they will make profits based on some data that they've reduced their losses over the last few years, few quarters, etc. And what also helps is that rain gauge index, right? If you see that the highest performing index in the last 18-24 months is all of these tech-backed companies, because they continue to grow at 30, 40, 50% year on year, right? Everything else is growing at less than 10%. Unilever is struggling for growth, TCS is struggling for growth. And some of these are not even small cap companies, right? Some of them will end up being mid cap companies when they list. So there is tremendous
Swiggy is, by the way, large cap now.
Wow. So you have technically large cap companies coming in, getting listed, growing at 50, 60% year on year. I don't think the Indian retail / DII investor has seen such exuberance around potential growth around companies for a very long time. So I think that will sustain. It is exciting to see companies grow this fast. And in the end, valuations are a predicator of, how fast a company can grow in also, right? So fundamentally, that will continue to happen. The third aspect is, I think all investors, pre-IPO investors, as well as companies and promoters and founders have smartened up to the fact that there is a cost that we'll have to bear to go into the IPO, which is we'll have to keep the valuation very reasonable. We'll have to leave money on the table and make sure everyone makes money in the IPO. There is a good listing, and even post-IPO, there is a lot of value creation that will happen. And I think that has been the final variable that is now fueling this acceleration of companies going IPO. MobiKwik was, I think, an extreme example, but you will see a lot more companies being very reasonable in their asks when they're going to list, get over subscription, and then make sure that they have a good listing and they continue to grow as well. So will they leave some money on the table? Yes, but I think that's the cost of going from an illiquid company to a liquid company. That's the cost of dismantling all the SHAs and the preferential rights. That's the cost of making sure that everything remains kosher for. It's not just that your early investors are making 30, 40x and the promoters suddenly get liquidity, etc. Everybody in the ecosystem has to benefit from this, and I think that's the piece that 2024 showed that will continue to accelerate in 2025 as well. So I think all the conditions seem to be very, very ripe for us to get a lot more IPOs this year.
I think, Revant, what is the second order effect of this? So let's say, if companies are getting listed, now the stock is as good as cash. You can. So do you think that, my sense is that this should lead to pick up in pace on the M&A activity in India as well, right? Wherein, some of these companies might want to, we saw that at Nazara, wherein the gaming company, wherein they have gone and acquired companies because they are a listed companies. We have seen that in case of Apple. So it's of course company dependent that there are companies who want to do M&A activity and there are companies who don't want to, would rely on building most things. But my sense is that, with all this heightened activity of companies getting listed, India should finally start to see uh, a pickup in pace on the M&A activity. Of course, there is this qualitative, softer aspect of it that will founders leave their ego in terms of selling their companies. But my sense is, I think we will see a new wave of M&A activity also in India over the next 12, 18, 24 months.
I think that's a good prediction, actually. The only problem I've seen in India M&A is pricing. So it was very nice to see a news that Unilever is considering to acquire Minimalist at 3,000 crores. Like most D2C brands that have got acquisition offers or have gotten acquired have been in the range of 400 to 600 crores. And a lot of people used to ask me, कि यार ये क्यों है? And my view was nobody had, in these large companies, nobody had the wherewithal to go to the board and say, we want to make a 2, 3, 4,000 crore acquisition. So hopefully that goes through. I think final contours of the deal are still left, but hopefully the month we'll see a formal announcement from Unilever as well. And it's going to be one of the largest brand acquisitions in the last decade or so, right? So that's a good sign. Part of the problem I see is pricing always. If you are let's look at Captain Fresh, right? It's a company that's going to go IPO this year. They have acquired companies in the US at 4 times, 6 times, 8 times EBITDA or something like that. Now, if they had to acquire companies in India, the pricing would be 30 times EBITDA. So I actually see a case where companies that have gone IPO, you're right, Nazara is a good example that has done this in India. But if you look at SaaS, if you look at consumer brands, if there are possibilities for you to leverage your stock which is listed and get cash and maybe play the arbitrage of buying great businesses, maybe in markets that are complementary, that may happen. I'm assuming a Unilever or a P&G or a Colgate continue to be, or a Reckitt continue to be more aggressive towards India. They used to be, like, I don't know if people remember here, but Reckitt bought Paras Pharma, which was at, I think, $700 million or something. That was a massive deal. It's been more than a decade since that happened. I don't know why things haven't. I'm sure there have been so many great brands built since then. Unilever bought Kesh King for, I think, about 5,000 crores. These guys have a lot of cash on their balance sheets. Why they don't use it? My view is they don't see great brands. When they see great brands, the pricing is too expensive. It will be, right? Because if you are one of very few great brands, then you will, and because you're getting wooed by financial investors, the IPO market's telling you we'll give you great value, then why would you sell at a lower value to a strategic? So I agree with your prediction on M&A. I just don't know if the pricing, I think the ego around selling a company has gone away. I think people are very open to now sell their companies. Ego on pricing is something that will have to be.
But I think that sort gets corrected. Let's say we have seen in the case of Good Glam, maybe that's a discussion for some other time. But they were doing stock deals, right? In terms of giving their stock. And then as a founder, you would say that, okay, I don't know what's going to happen, XYZ. Whereas if a stock is listed and, you realize that it is as good as cash, your expectation or your bargaining power, from increases, from a M&A point of view is what we have realized. And of course, what you're saying in terms of doing global M&A becomes a real possibility in today's world where, we are saying, okay, SaaS margins are shrinking, and more horizontal companies are going to acquire. There are going to be lesser, smaller companies. All that stuff is happening. So my sense is this is going to happen. I think you touched upon an interesting point, minimalist. I think there is an interesting tweet which was happening, which I think takes us to what we had discussed in the last one of the episodes, that why the size of the fund for a VC matters. So they raised $2 million from Peak assume that it's 25% dilution. And then they raised another $15 million from P plus Unilever at around close to $80 million of value. And then they are in talks to get acquired at $350 million. Now, if you look at it, that seed investors will end up making like are almost close to 60-65 million dollars. There is some assumption to this. But I think the larger point which we had discussed in one of the episodes is that Series A investors get close to
Yeah.
$70 million dollars, and you assume a 2:1 split between Peak, Unilever, etc.
Yeah.
Assuming Peak had invested out of Sequoia Capital's India's sixth fund, which is $700 million fund, proceeds from Minimalist is about 15% of the total fund size. So
Yeah.
I think we had discussed this. I just wanted to bring this, that this is a real live example which is going on. That this is a successful company. We are discussing this, that this is one of the best outcomes which has happened, but it still is not a fund returner company for Peak, just because the size of the fund is way larger. So they need
Yeah.
much larger outcomes.
Yeah. See, I think most VCs have acknowledged that consumer brands are not going to be fund returners for them. The good part is consumer brands also don't take a lot of capital. So out of Peak's 800 million fund or 700, 600, whatever that fund was, they would not have allocated more than 5-6% to consumer brands. So in a way, I'm almost hearing that a lot of VCs are looking at consumer brand investments as almost like a sub fund that you take 10%
strategy.
of your fund, you deploy it in. Yeah, it's not going to like even great outcomes. Like you'll have one-off great outcomes like a Honasa where money, and that was again a fund size, right? Like Stellaris had 100 million fund in which they must have deployed around 10 million in Honasa, and they must have got at least 150, if not more, outright. So that was a fund returner for them, but it was a smaller fund. So same with Fireside. I think it was Fireside Fund 1 company, which was $50 million as a fund, and they would have got maybe 2x of the fund out of that. So the best way for a large VC to play consumer brands is to almost like treat it as a sub fund and say कि ये side pool है 50 million का, इसमें से हम consumer brand करेंगे, उतना ही पैसा लगेगा. And you end up making 4x that, and that is just a separate pool. The only problem there is your portfolio size blows up sometimes. Like if you're a fund who has to do 30 investments, you can't have suddenly 20 investments just in consumer brands, right? So it's a little convoluted, specifically with consumer brands per se. And this is maybe we can at some point of time get a guest from one of these $500 million plus funds and ask them how do they plan to play consumer brands as such, which is a more private equity kind of deal also, right? It's not technically pure venture. Per se. But I think this is something that has plagued venture in the US, and I don't think the answer is going to get any clearer in India as well as such.
Correct. I think since you were discussing VC returns, I think one of the important predictions, which I don't know if that's still a prediction. We've been seeing that as a trend over the years, that what's going to happen to our INR USD rate. It tends to, come down to founders that, you need to build 3% depreciation in all the projections. But it's a variable which is not in our control. And from a VC point of view, also, who end up raising from international or who end up raising international capital, which is USD dominated, their returns are going to be in USD. So, the overall return profile reduces. I'll show you an interesting trend in terms of what's been happening on that in India over the years. This is been, the last 10-year trend. When we say that 3% depreciation kar lo on the Excel sheet, I think this chart really sums it up that 3% to ho hi raha. This year I was hopeful that till I think September, October, we were holding on to 83, 84. But then December, I think we again went back to 86, 85 and a half, closer to 86. And I think, my sense is that this is at least the past. In this case, past is a very good indicator of future. Now we have Trump back, who's going to, there is expected trade policies. So there's going to be further strengthening of USD. And
so last
interest
Trump
rates at
season
least
we
are going
went
to come
from,
down.
I'm just seeing Jan 16 when Trump came in, we were at 66. And when Trump exited, we were at 72. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can expect that sort of pain. I mean, I think the interest rate movement or the USD INR movement has already started just in the anticipation of Trump coming back. I don't know what happens after he comes back as well, but it's a fair observation. And this is a discussion that companies like us, which are at growth stage now, need to really start. I think early stage companies should not worry about who they are raising from, and global VCs are a great patient long only capital per se. But once you reach Series B, Series C, I think the discussions are becoming more and more uh, deeper around this, that what is the IRR expectation. And
Yeah.
if you're going to have a rupee revenue and you're going to compound at 30% over the next, let's say, 5 years, it's going to be very hard for you to raise capital from someone whose LPs are, let's say, in the US, because your 30% compounding may give you a 30% IRR technically, but that's in rupee. And if that depreciates by 3-4%, and then there is obviously post fees, post carry, then the return to their LPs is something that whatever these VCs or PEs would have promised, the growth expectations becomes a little higher from larger companies, or at least the entry valuations have to be cheaper, right? One of the two has to be true. So I think we are seeing, I'm seeing around me a lot more companies raising domestic capital, pre-IPO capital. There's a lot of domestic funds now, a lot of family offices that are, we saw the Zepto round where 350 million came in from domestic capital, right? So I think domestic capital in private is a reality. Publics obviously is something we are seeing. My one prediction is I think a lot of the VCP firms that are operating in India will start over-indexing on domestic capital going forward,
Correct.
because it just helps manage the IRRs a little better. Because if you're raising domestic, then you're returning also in domestic, and taking this 3% hit is just, I mean, it's in nobody's control, but it's a
Yeah.
stark reality. So
Yeah.
I foresee.
So
See, I think some funds like Z47 already had a India AIF. I think their AIF portion will increase over time. I think it only the top 3-4 the guys now, which are Axel, Peak, uh, maybe Lightspeed, are still totally foreign. I think the rest have some. I think maybe even Nexus. The rest have some sort of AIF where they take domestic capital, and I think it's a right move. I think it's a smart strategy to keep diversifying and taking more domestic capital over time, because India's capital pools are also deepening, right? The biggest
yes.
advantage, as we had discussed a few episodes back, was the long-term capital gains now is same on public and private. That just helps a lot of diversification for the large endowment slash family offices to start looking at private, becoming LPs in private sector VCs and Ps in India. So I think that's going to be a good acceleration in the coming years.
Interesting. I think so. You're saying, I think that prediction is probably right, looking into our eyes, that domestic capital is, or domestic capital deployment in startups will increase. Uh, and largely it's I think managed both ends. One is the capital pool deepening, and second is startups also realizing that they don't have much control over this INR USD depreciation, which keeps happening at the rate of 3% year on year. I think, Revant, this is an interesting one. You look at the left hand side graph, and I think we saw a little bit of anecdotal evidence when we were in Australia at the MCG, which is a ground which is probably one of the largest grounds, ability to host 1 lakh people, close to 1 lakh people. Probably, we saw many Indians, probably more than 50% Indians in the stadium. I think if I have to go back and look at this chart now, where it looks like that foreign travel is about to, from a growth perspective, is about to have a higher growth than domestic. Uh, and if that is true, if that is happening, there is anecdotal evidence which keeps supporting it. Uh, what sectors will get benefited here? What are the second order effects here on this one, right? We have seen companies which have come up, which have started to help on this getting us visas. We have seen countries started to provide, Indians a lot of these that you don't need visa. You just come in and directly do immigration at our airports. So visa-free, easy access is there. Uh, you know, uh, I see that, while we have seen quite a domination in the OTA sector, but I think my sense is that that's going to further increase, continue to have a higher growth sector. But what are the second order effects of this you see? That if foreign travel is increasing from India, what are the sectors you see as having huge tailwinds?
It's a tough one. I mean, I think the first order effects are very clear, which is the card companies that help with forex. They are
The
obviously doing
Neo, the
pretty well.
Scapias of the world, yeah.
Yeah. The second is obviously, I mean, Mokobara's success broadly. I mean, it's so funny. Whenever I travel, I have to make sure I look at my name tag because there are three Mokobara bags, which is on the
That's
belt,
so true.
which are of absolutely the same design, right? So, see, consumer brands are not winner take all. So I'm sure the other few travel and luggage brands that have come up will also do well. Because the sector is expanding so fast. People need options. People need designs. Um, I think travel, apparel and shoes is also big. See, the travel is a little bit of status signaling, right? You're gonna see a lot of travel photos on Instagram. So it's I think there is a entire shopping spree that happens just around each one of your travels. Because if you're
Yes.
traveling to a cold place, फिर शॉपिंग करना है, वार्म प्लेस फिर शॉपिंग करना है, टर्की की शॉपिंग अलग है और आपकी बैंकॉक की शॉपिंग अलग है. So I think the whether it's comfort clothing, athleisure, sports, sneakers, like this entire sector is just going to
एग्जैक्टली
keep
वहां
seeing
पर
more and
जाके
more
सेम
growth.
डेस्टिनेशन में भी जाके द चॉइसेस हैव बिकम डीपर नाउ सो यू विल हैव रनिंग शू एज वेल एज रनिंग equipments as well as running dress also. People will also have a gym,
Yeah.
gym equipments or fashion accessories for that way. And then, of course, you want to, let's say we were there, you want to attend the New Year fireworks. So there is a separate glittery jacket for that one. So you're right that it does lead to a lot of, no doubt that, Black Friday has started to work in India. That a lot of people travel during this time. And that should see a lot of momentum going forward in terms of growth. And you are right that one sector, luggage, I think should see overall continue to see overall growth. I know that Mokobara needs to solve this problem of or going deeper into more personalization so that one can figure out their own luggage. I think they've sold enough of the same design, which everyone likes to
Yeah.
like. Everyone likes. Um that's there. Uh, I think payment companies, I still feel that there are a lot of problem statements to be solved there. But there are startups which are starting to come up. We know Scapia, which is trying to solve for these foreign currency cards which are there. But this is a very, very interesting trend which is developing. I think this does show, there was this interesting stat somewhere that Indians are going to be in terms of percentage people traveling abroad, that's going to be the largest segment which is going to dominate for foreign travel, right? Maybe it's not now, maybe it's the next 5 year thing, but I think we're getting here. We can see from the number of Indians in Singapore Airlines, number of Indians in Emirates, or number of Indians watching some of these international sports events.
Yeah, or the number of Indians who have gone to Coldplay to Dubai, Abu Dhabi this weekend. So I think all of those are definitely a good sign. One second order effect, I think, is we're going to start adopting a lot of these developed world practices. So I think there was a phase during which we started adopting, let's say, Greek yogurt and the Western breakfast meals and stuff like that. Because when you travel, hotel में जो मिलेगा आपको खाना पड़ेगा, right? You're not going to get your idli dosa when you're traveling in Europe. You'll eat the granola and the whatever
Yeah.
smoothie you get and stuff like that, right? So I actually see some of these will become mainstream. थोड़ा सा ये tier 1 का था, but as tier 2 is also now traveling a lot to, let's say, Southeast Asia, which is cheaper than Goa. There was a big ruckus during New Year saying Goa khali ho gaya and sub Southeast Asia mein and stuff like that. But what is more interesting, I think, will happen is again going back to my first statement where I said health and wellness will become more mainstream. I think it's to do with a little bit with this as we are becoming more global in our thought process, as we are experiencing how people live in Thailand or Malaysia or Singapore or Vietnam or Philippines or Australia or Europe or Italy. Like every one of these travel instances are experiences where people really absorb something new and they're like, यार हमारी जिंदगी ऐसे क्यों नहीं हो सकती करके. And then you want that, right? It's not just you seeing a reel on Instagram and saying that यार इंडिया में ये क्यों नहीं है. But once you experience a city, once you take in, let's say, 5, 7, 10 days of a unique environment, then you really feel that, yeah, why can't this be available in India? And I think that will accelerate a lot more global brands coming into India, a lot more new experiences, whether it's concerts, whether it's, sporting events, international brands coming into India, Indian brands giving more international standard experiences, whether in product or services. I think that acceleration is just going to increase, in my opinion, as India travels more. And it was more a rich man's person before, or a rich person's thing before, that you could only travel. But now that Southeast Asia is broadly open, visa free is a big thing. There are like 25, 30 countries that are beautiful, easily accessible, that are all visa free.
Yeah.
It's actually getting more affordable to do a lot of international travel. And even countries that are technically cheaper than India, the infrastructure is great, the air quality is great. So I think the aspiration is only going to get accelerated. Good or bad, I don't know, but I think that's going to definitely happen.
Yeah, I think for sure. I think this exposure in terms of foreign travel does help in terms of building newer habits, getting you exposed to whether these new fitness regimes. I see a lot of these fitness related travel also start to come up. People of course used to travel for marathons. Now I started to see there are these high rocks events where people are planning to go to Sharjah, people are planning to go to Amsterdam. So it's starting to happen. I think people have figured out their own themes. I think what would be great is that if we can get some of those hygiene practices also back to India, right? Whether surprisingly, the same Indians, when we keep hearing the same Indians reach MCG, and I think all of them tend to behave in terms of not throwing their glasses and then keeping it, putting it back in the dustbin. Or just patiently waiting in lines, right, which doesn't seem to happen in India. I'm hoping that some of these hygiene things also we are able to get back to India. It will take us time,
Population
but
का
yeah.
कुछ नहीं कर सकते हैं यार. We can't do anything about the fact that we're just overly populated and overly dense in most of these places. Like, I have a view that if you go to South Goa in the middle of summer, you will be as patient as possible, क्योंकि लोग ही नहीं है. बट वही साउथ गोवा आप दिसंबर में जाओगे, आपका पेशेंस कम हो जाएगा, बिकॉज वो इट्स जस्ट annoying to see so many people around, and that anxiety just increases, right? I think there's something to do with density of people. The anxiety levels just increase significantly. I know technically at a sporting event or a concert in an international location, there is a lot of speed, but you are not anxious. There is something around the environment. Maybe it's the fear of getting disciplined. Like
Yeah,
the
I
rules
think it's
around.
more cultural. Yeah, people are brought
But
that
rules भी
way.
बहुत strict
Schools
है ना
are.
यार.
I think all of this
Like,
is generational thing. This starts with schools. You are taught in schools that this is how you are done, and then you start carrying it that way. It's very difficult. Like for example, in international location, we see that even at midnight, even if somebody is in a hurry, they will see that all roads are empty. They'll not jump the red light. Whereas
Yeah.
in India, everyone will take a call that okay, it's absolutely okay. I can take that judgment call. But I think we're far from that. I think that's not happening soon.
Very good, yeah. I
But
think
wha- how's your Australia hangover? Are you over it? What has stayed? What is keeping you up in terms of the Australia hangover?
माई टीम इज टेलिंग मी कि आप ज़्यादा इंस्पायर होके आए हो, इतना हेल्दी खा रहे हो, इतना इतना वॉकिंग कर रहे हो. आई एम लाइक भाई, जब तुम दिन में 15-20 हज़ार स्टेप ऐसे ही चल लेते हो, इतना हेल्दी खाते हो, क्योंकि अनहेल्दी खाना मिलता ही नहीं है वहाँ पे. लाइक इफ यू रिकॉल, एवरी कैफे हैड जस्ट सार्डो ब्रेड, राइट? नॉर्मल ब्रेड था ही नहीं. तो आई मीन, इट वॉज एक्सपेंसिव, बट इट वॉज वॉट वॉज ऑन ऑफर, राइट? सो इट जस्ट, I think
And
it
plus,
was
nothing
a
was
lot of,
open after like 7 p.m. While a
yeah,
lot of people are telling us, we thought that, okay, and me being me, I thought that I'll figure out something. But surprisingly, there were very less options. They are the only options were these standard international chains, McD, KFC, which are on the extreme
which
end
is the
of being
unhealthy ones,
healthy.
right? Technically.
Unhealthy. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. No,
So
but
you are
that has
forced
stayed
that
with me.
way.
Huh? So that has stayed with me. I am now not eating. I was at a event yesterday, a VC fund event. I reached at 7:30. I quickly gobbled a few starters. 8 p.m. I just stopped. I like, भाई अब कुछ नहीं खाऊंगा मैं. But the sleep impact is significant. Yeah, I am sleeping so much better just because I'm having my last meal at 7. Um, it's very interesting, right? And no one, every time I used to feel hungry at night, I used to eat something. And now the science is like, boss, you're supposed to feel hungry when you go to sleep because you've had your meal much, much, much earlier. And it's okay, you'll get sleep. Don't worry about it. ये मिथ है कि आपको पेट भरा भरा लगना चाहिए नींद आने के लिए. बिल्कुल नहीं. So at least my sleep has improved significantly since started having my last meal at 7, which is obviously the continuation of what we were doing on the break as well, because no food was available post that time, right? So it's a great way to force it. I was telling my wife this, right, कि what if all restaurants in India closed at 9:30, कि भाई इसके बाद आपको खाना ही नहीं मिलेगा, या 9 बजे. बॉम्बे नहीं कर सकते आप, बट बैंगलोर तो कर ही सकते हैं. पीपल रैप अप अर्ली इन ऑफिस, राइट? सो
I think
एंड
that's
इफ
a
पीपल आर इन
good
ऑफिस,
one
देन
to
द,
open a that's a good positioning to do a healthy, positioning or a true healthy restaurant wherein you don't
yeah,
serve anything after 8 p.m.
yeah,
Right? That's a good
yeah.
one. But otherwise, by India being India, anyways, we are seeing the Zepto cafes or the 10-minute delivery, which is starting to come up. Now, अगर तू restaurant बंद करा देगा 8 बजे 9 बजे, फिर all this furor on employment will start to creep up कि भाई अब लोग काम कहाँ करेंगे, फिर सभी Zomato Swiggy राइडर बन जाएंगे.
But it's a great idea for a health brand, right? Like a health brand should say कि मैं 7 बजे
Yeah.
के बाद खाना दूंगा ही नहीं, because I'm a health brand. I care about your health. You should not eat after 7 p.m. at night. And the interesting thing is most places open at 6 in the morning, right? So do the early morning, like we keep saying, right? I think it's, if you go back to what James Clear said in Atomic Habits, right? Change your environment. So the environment also needs to change. So in some way, the environment in India, or especially I stay in Bombay, right, which is like मैक्सिमम सिटी, कुछ बंद ही नहीं होता, और आपको सुबह 3 बजे भी खाना मिल जाएगा, विच इज ऑल ग्रेट फॉर द वर्कफोर्स दैट इज वर्किंग एट दैट पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम. बट बाय डिजाइन, कैन देयर बी एन एनवायरमेंट वेयर यू कैन जस्ट follow the I mean, broadly it's a circadian rhythm, right? Like जब sunlight आती है तो उठो, eat only between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. That's broadly the sunlight hours in India. And then you'll be okay. The rest of the things will follow. At least that has stuck with me. And I'm hoping that I can continue that for the rest of the year, which is not eat before 7 a.m. in the morning and not eat after 7 p.m. at night. Automatically, आपका intermittent fasting भी हो ही गया ना. It's a fancy word, right? But when you stop eating at 7 p.m., हो गया आपका IF.
I think another one, which of course is a hangover from the trip, is that of course we had a great trip, but the outcomes were not in our favor. What do we do with our senior players? We have a Champions Trophy coming in. I think there is a
I have
debate which
stopped.
keeps going on.
I have
You have
stopped
stopped
thinking about
2025.
the.
That that
I think life is too, like, if you go back to what we get told as founders, right, which is true for everybody, we have to at our age work on energy management, and anything that reduces our energy, we should stop spending time on it. So unfortunately, the senior players were being selfish and not working for the team, not working for the country. What happens to them is honestly, it's just draining too much energy thinking about that aspect. So I mean, we'll see what happens.
Cricket is
But
still a energy giver for us. I know that these players, or at least some of the moments there in the stadium, were energy drainers. Uh, Rohit did come out and made a statement that I stepped down because I was not well. I don't know whether it was orchestrated, etc., etc. But that's for a separate conversation. I think this
yeah,
is a sport. We don't need to make it PR worthy. You need to
I think there's
perform. It's not entertainment.
too much noise that's happening. I think honestly, it was a great series. I think it was great cricket, super fun watching the. I think what was happening outside the ground or some of the incidents on the ground were just energy draining, to be honest. And it was largely around the
My
PR management and the around the senior players, which is what really was disappointing to see.
one moment which has
Otherwise,
stayed
if
with me when you were saying energy is that we were there at the Sydney match when the Bumrah Constus episode
yeah,
happened towards the end of the day. I think it was fantastic to be in the stadium during that moment of time.
yeah,
What happened and the way everyone pounced on him. Anyway, it was. I think it's going to stay with me for a while.
yeah. Yeah, no, that was good fun. At least when Bumrah did that, it was energy giving. Whereas when I think what Kohli did, I mean it was I don't know how you could justify that as well, right? The shoulder barge to Constas as a senior player, like for you to get riled up after having played for so many years. I actually don't understand when he says that I eat clean food, I do meditation, I do gymming. Where is your mental peace? I mean, why are you not at peace? So even that seems to be much of PR, right? मतलब वो जो कि मैं रोटी नहीं खाता हूँ सिर्फ boiled vegetables खाता हूँ and ये and वो it seems to be a lot of PR यार मतलब you should be at a lot of mental peace if you are sleeping well, eating well. तुम whoop पहन के क्या तुम्हारा 100% रिकवरी हो रहा है फिर तुम क्यों इतना mentally stressed हो यार. So मुझे तो समझ ही नहीं आ रहा है कि how can you after a career of it's a great career, right? In fact, see,
He's
we are
still
the
once
Sachin
in a
era, right?
generation
If you
player,
think about it, Sachin had
correct.
yeah. Why do you want to degrade like lose respect amongst your fans? There was a time when Virat would be on, he's better than Sachin, etc. And now people are like, boss, at least like there was a lot of times where Sachin had poor form, but at least he didn't act out. He didn't throw tantrums. He didn't. I mean, he was just.
But then,
ठीक है यार, we'll
Revant,
figure
every
it
player
out
is a
करके.
player. Everyone has a different personality. I don't know much about his mental fitness, but I think if I have to compare both Rohit and Virat in terms of physical fitness, I think he's at least physically very, very fit to be in the team. Right?
Yeah, which is
There
fair.
are doubts, or we can raise questions around Rohit. Uh,
Yeah.
Interesting. I think lot of hangover things, but we'll continue with this. I think we'll end the episode here. We'll wish
शांतनु बुरा मान जाएगा कि तुम
Shant
क्रिकेट डिस्कस कर रहे हो
yeah
मेरे बिना. तो let's not have too
wish a
many
speedy
cricket
recovery to
discussions with
Shantanu.
us.
He'll join us next episode, and look forward to discussing more topics with him.